everyone. Ashley Mailloux and Gino Buccola here, taking a look at the Sunday DRF race of the day. Race number 7 out at Santa Anita. It's the Desert Stormer. $100,000 on the line. 6 furlongs here on the main track, Gino. As we take a look at this field of fillies and mares, it's just an interesting group here for these 4-year-olds and upward runners. 7 total in here. And, you know, I feel like on paper, there's a lot of horses that have come into form as of late, and a couple that will appreciate getting back onto the dirt.
And you have a total wild card like the 6 Ricci, who comes in to the Bob Baffert barn with Juan Hernandez for the first time. This is a horse who's a multiple Group 1 winner in Chile. You can check out some of the works too on XBTV. This horse has shown a lot of speed in the morning. And if you watch any of her races from Chile, she is like a runoff speed type horse. So she's like a real wild card and kind of an enigma in this race. I'm very curious to see how she'll fare on Sunday.
Mentioned Juan Hernandez and Bob Baffert teaming up with that newcomer Ricci from Post 6. We'll take a look here at the Timeform US pace projections. And not too often we see this in sprints in California. No speed is really projected in here, but the horse on the outside, the number 7, Princess of Time, a 4-year-old filly, she's been quite forward in her last 2 since switching to the dirt and cutting back in distance. She has the outside draw in here, Gino. And a couple of other horses, they like to be forward as well.
And keep in mind, because the 6 doesn't have US form, the 6 is not on the pace projector right here too, Ricci. And this is a horse who, like, I really have no clue, Ashley, what to expect pace-wise, because she's cutting back from like 1.25-mile races, but she's been able to show speed at sprint distances and in the mornings too. So she's a real wild card to how the pace will shape up. I think the most honest of these pace horses, one that I feel pretty confident will run a good race, is the 3, Tom's Regret. We can talk more about her because what I like is she's got speed, but she can also sit a little bit and pass horses if she needs to. So of the grouping of horses that I think will be in that top flight, I feel pretty confident that she's going to run a good race and give a nice account of herself.
We'll kick it off here with the horse that has the LP flag, the late pace flag attached to her. That's the number 1, Chismosa. This is a horse that's been on the downhill in 3 consecutive efforts now. Gino is going to get back onto the dirt. And you look at her dirt races at Santa Anita. Yes, she's just 1 for 3, but she has some really big figures on the main track.
Yeah, she's kind of sneaky too. She's a grade 3 winner. She's multiple grade 2 placed. Her last win was actually the grade 3 Los Flores when she was going 6 furlongs on the dirt. And if you just look at her last 2 dirt sprints, they're really nice races. I mean, she's got a grade 3 win and a grade 2 runner-up effort. You see Stay and Scam, a horse that you and I have talked about a few times over the last couple of weeks. That's a multiple graded stakes placed horse who just won a Calbred Stakes last week. And you see Sweet Azteca, who's a grade 1 winner in the running line. So she's really honest. You sort of know what you're going to get from her. I don't have her quite up on the top tier with some of the others in here, but I really respect her ability, and I want to like her even more. If she gets the right trip, she will come running.
The number 2, Outside the Law, a little bit of an outsider, only made 1 trip to Santa Anita. It was to kick off the 2024 campaign. We're actually going to take a look at that most recent effort out at Turf Paradise. She only had 4 other rivals in the $60,000 stake event, Gino, but she does everything right in here, gets a 77 buyer speed figure. And, you know, after sitting just off the pace for that opening 1/4 mile, she draws clear quite nicely here.
Yeah, and that's nice for her in this spot because in a class standpoint, she's a little bit overmatched here. As you were pointing out, she's come over to Santa Anita before, and in that particular case, she just seemed like she was up against it, facing too tough of company. But the equalizer is always speed in these races, right? If you have some tactical speed, some positional speed, and you can at least put yourself in the race, this horse absolutely has a chance to at least fall into it and hit the board. So in all these races, you know, you may not always be the best horse, but if you are one of the faster horses and you have a tactical advantage on others, you might be able to hit the board, or that's when the upsets really happen.
Moving on to number 3, Tom's Regret. Another one similar to Chismosa exits a turf event. As we look at that last out effort, I know it was on the grass. It was going 6 furlongs. I point out this replay because it is her first start in quite a while. We hadn't seen her between early July and the middle of May. And, you know, she's second best in this race behind Spicy Bug. And you can see she's trying to kick on deep here, and you can't miss her in this race. But I thought overall for return to the races, she kind of did what she needed to do.
Yeah, and you look at her race there and she showed you exactly what you would expect, right? A horse coming off of a long layoff, just getting a little bit tired. Like a horse was kind of battling throughout, now gets back to dirt, second start off the 10-month break. Overall, she's never been worse than 3rd in any of her starts. You see a horse named Ceiling Crusher in a couple of her running lines. That's a grade 1 winner, a multiple graded stakes winner. We're also going to talk about Ceiling Crusher, who's a rival of the horse right next door, Annie who's a very, very live player in here. I don't really have many knocks on Tom's Regret in here. I know that based on speed figures, she's a slight cut below maybe a few of the tip-top horses in here, but I think she's really honest. She has speed. She can sit off. And as you were pointing out, she'll make that second start back off the long layoff. That's her second start at 4. I feel like there's a lot of room for improvement in her to take a big step forward in here, Ashley.
And a similar story can be said here about the number 4, Anywho. I guess the difference is her return to the races as a 4-year-old was a winning one. It was very impressive at Churchill. It was over the slop. Obviously, she was forwardly placed, Gino, but she drew clear in there with an 88 Beyer speed figure. And I guess the one thing that's a little maybe lackluster with her, she's a little inconsistent. She'll have a great race, and then she'll pop kind of a dud performance. But I thought the way that she kicked off her 4-year-old campaign was at least impressive.
Yeah, and they've given her, a few weeks back in May 17th. So we're not talking about even a full month quite yet, right? So that would be one of my concerns, is kind of coming back quickly after you have such a big performance, right? Where you get a big Beyer speed figure that day. She got an 88, but she's really tough for me to kind of just toss. Like, she does look like the horse to beat in here, because I think you can easily isolate those races going a little bit longer, Ashley, and maybe that can be the reason why some of her form is a little on and off, because the sprint races, the first 2 races going 7, they were very good. Then she tried to go a little bit farther, mile and a 16th, and that proved to be just a tad too far. She came back with a good effort going 6 furlongs when she was only beating the neck. And then again, when she tried to go longer, she was behind Ceiling Crusher. And that was also the race right before her long layoff, because she was off from September to May. So yeah, I have really very little to knock on her at all. She's the horse to beat in here. And I think if you're playing any exotic, she's probably in them.
When we move to the number 5, Delightful Heart, we'll show her 4-year-old kind of debut after having 2 races as a 3-year-old in the springtime. Looking at her race on April 4th at Santa Anita, yes, it was going 6.5, but she got a really nice trip. She was only in front of 2 runners early, and she had these targets in front of her, but the way that she kind of hits her best stride late, I think bodes well for her, but it was at 6.5. Now she is going to cut back slightly to 6.
Yeah, visually, you hit the nail right on the head, right? Doesn't she look like she's just starting to get going right around that 6 furlong point? So to me, that was my main concern in here. I think she does either need a little bit longer distance or a very quick pace to help get her running and maybe to get her going a little bit quicker. So while I respect her ability a bunch, she just beat a horse that came back to win next time out, a first level allowance going 6.5. She lost to a horse named Clearly Unhinged. That was her only defeat. That horse just came back and won the grade 3 winning colors for Steve Asmussen, I think just last weekend. So a horse that's still in really nice form. Overall, not a ton to knock. I just don't know if this trip against this group will be her best, but she's a horse that I've got in my stable mail and I keep an eye on for down the line, because at 7 furlongs in a mile, I think she's going to be really good right around there.
And the wild card in some sense is the 6, Ricci in here. This one for Bob Baffert. I think the big concern is, what do you expect from this runner? We haven't seen this one since December of 2023. And you mentioned a couple races at 1.25 miles. The last out, 1.3 miles, Ace. She was nowhere to be seen in the end, but she does have some interesting races at a distance we don't see often here, at least not on the dirt, 7.5. So now she's going to cut back to 6 with a barn that we know the numbers that they produce.
If you're someone who likes to just get as much of a look at horses as you can visually, you can find a couple of the replays, the international replays from Chile, where she's just talented. She's just better than most of those horses, Ashley. You can see she'll sort of get out of the gate. She'll get a length ahead of them. They kind of look around and she just sort of lopes along on the front end and is just really, really talented. And then in her workouts in the morning, they've been trying to get speed out of her. She was actually working with a horse named Tahoe Sunrise, who you and I talked about when we previewed one of the stakes races for Saturday coming up this weekend. So they've been keeping her with solid company. And I think that by what I'm seeing from her in the mornings, that I do expect them to want to show speed in here with her. I have her just underneath spots. I can't play her on top because she's just such a wild card here. But I would absolutely be shocked to not see her at least show speed and be competitive with this group. But to me, it'll be more of an underneath, just till I can really get a good kind of feel for her and get some pulse on who she really is. But I love when there's a wild card like this in a race, because it really makes things a little more intriguing.
And as we talk about this, we're doing this without the morning line. So I think that'll be an interesting thing to see once that posted what the morning line on Ricci is. We round out the field, though, with the number 7, Princess of Time. We'll take a look at her most recent performance. It was her first time facing winners, and she finds the winner's circle again. She was once again also, Gino, forwardly placed. And when we saw the Timeform US pace projections, not expecting necessarily a ton of speed, I don't know. I think they'll go quick for 6 furlongs, but she does have the advantage of this spot having the outside draw.
Yeah, she's 2 for 2 sprinting on the dirt. She was a step slow. Then she pushed through. She was kind of battling outside early in the stretch, and she kind of cleared off a length as we're watching on the replay there. So I really don't have much to knock on her last 2 efforts. And as you pointed out, the outside draw will help her, okay, give her the opportunity if she needs to sit off just a little bit. But based on speed figures and just based on this group being a pretty competitive group, I still have her as more of an underneath type in here. I think she'll need to improve a little bit to get, competitive with a few of the top fillies in here.
And that's the field of 7 for the Sunday DRF race of the day, the Desert Stormer. Don't forget, you can get free past performances formulator PPs on the website. And top pick time, Gino, you had a good poker face today. I'm not sure.
I did.
You did go to the number 3, Tom's Regret.
I had to try to keep it a little bit of a secret till the end, at least in one of these videos. I get so excited. I always want to get my hand right off the bat early on. I think Tom's Regret just has the versatility and early speed to get herself in nice position and then sit off. I think she can finish. You go through her form overall. This has always been a nice filly. She's a Calbred, so she's not necessarily a horse who's like probably supposed to be on the same caliber class-wise as a couple of the others in here, but I think she's really tough. She's hard-knocking. She knows Santa Anita. She likes Santa Anita. She likes this trip, and while I have some question marks with a few of the others, like with Ricci, who is coming off of a layoff, who's coming back pretty quickly off of a big race last time out, I think the second start back for Tom's Regret should be a really good opportunity for her to step forward. So I'll have 3 over, 4, 6, and 1. So I just put one horse on top of the horses that you have, and we're right there.
Yeah, I went with Anywho. I know you have some concerns maybe of that quick turnaround, but for me, when I see that coming from a barn that doesn't necessarily do it often, not that I recall, John Sadler, that gives me some confidence. And we know I'm a little biased. I love when horses ship elsewhere and they perform well and then they return to their home circuit. So hopefully she can take a step forward off a very nice win at Churchill Downs. So Anywho on top for me in the Desert Stormer, Tom's Regret for Gino. Race 7, DRF's race of the day this Sunday. Best of luck.